Bengals fans, we have a lot to talk about. A lot being an understatement as the Bengals lose a game they was heavy favorites in -7.5 against the Washington Commanders 38-33. Offense, let's start with what was beautiful. All right, we got to start off looking at what this offense did. 33 points. 36 if McPherson doesn't miss the field goal. Bengals really, a McPherson make and a 2-point conversion from being a 38-38 game. Offense, by the way, had the #1 ranked offensive performance this season as far as EPA is concerned so far. They're 4th ranked so far this season as far as EPA is concerned throughout the season. And they have the #1 success rate in the NFL right now offensively. So the offense is clicking. The offense may be premier, prime Joe Burrow offense, and that is what it looked like. We've seen him take some deep chances. We've seen Jamar Chase beat some guys deep. It looked like what you wanted to see. Amarius Mims getting into the fray of things. Unfortunately, Trent Brown done for the season, it looks like, with a knee injury. But the offense looking good. 6 yards per carry on the ground. They did what they needed to do in this game. And I think Carolina is going to be another game where you say, hey, okay, got another chance to do it. Another team that kind of struggles to get pressure on the quarterback, struggles to stop opposing teams, keep the ball rolling. Another week to figure out the defense. Yeah, the defense. I'm not done with Joe Burrow. I got to talk about Joe Burrow real quick. 324, 3 touchdowns on a game. Excellent. Picking apart this defense. I love to see it. Man, the defense. The defense. The defense that could not stop the Washington Commanders all game. The defense that did not force a punt all football game. The defense that could not get off the field all game. Hey, actually, now this a little bit skewed because, well, not really, because even Robinson didn't have the best performance there on the ground, but a defense that actually only allowed 3.3 yards per carry on the ground. Believe that or not. And again, and it was going to be mixed feelings in the Lou Anarumo situation, but I think Lou went in this game and said, we got a game plan to stop this team on the ground. And that's what you expect to do, right? Rookie quarterback, hasn't really fully proven himself yet. He's not he hasn't been a prolific passer in these games. Last football game, they couldn't find the end zone. Granted, they have not now punted in 2 football games, which is nuts. It's a team that hadn't found the end zone. So you say, all right, let's just clamp these guys down on the ground, force the football quarterback to throw the football, make him make mistakes. Little did you know, and this we did see throughout the game, Lou Anarumo did try different things. But little did you know that Jayden Daniels was going to come out here and look perfect. 21-23? The guy was phenomenal. He made every pass he needed to make. He completed with accuracy. Made the plays he needed to play. Kept the football moving down the football field. And a game you would have expected. In primetime, by the way, his first primetime game, you thought, hey, you know what? There's going to be some rookie mistakes. Somewhere in this game, he's going to make some mistakes. Just some human mistakes. And then, Bengals get a stop. But even on a 2nd and 19, you get Trey Hendrickson to get some pressure on this quarterback, and he still carves this defense up to move the football down the field. And when this team says, hey, you know what? Let's break. And again, this is where we say Lou Anarumo did switch things up. He did try something different. He started breaking anything. Let's just blitz the heck out of the guy. He's got to make a mistake, right? You bring somebody up in his face, throwing him to the ground, and he's throwing a dime into the end zone for a touchdown in stride. At some point, you have to stop and say, wow, this guy was having a game of his life. He was incredible. And there's only so much you can do to stop incredible. But at the same time, there's something, no stops, no clue to stop him defensively. And that's a concern. And you went into this game concerned because you knew that your defensive line could not get pressure on the quarterback. If Hendrickson got locked down, nobody else could get pressure. That has been the story of the season. You are now playing with backup defensive tackles because of the injuries. Story of the season. You was forced to game plan this way to stop the run because you knew your defensive line couldn't stop the run on their own. You had the game plan in a way to help them out, to support them. Hurts the secondary. And ultimately, we've seen that come to fruition in this game. Ultimately, there isn't an excuse, though, still, in my opinion, to not allow one stop or not get one stop, to give up 38 points to a young team, other than to just say you was unprepared. You got to take that one in the chin and say we was unprepared. I don't care what we had on the football field. You couldn't stop a rookie quarterback trying to figure things out. Still wasn't even using his number one target that much this season. And you hold their run game to 2 yards per carry. Their primary run ball carrier. You know, Eckler leaves the game for a little bit with an injury. And you can't. Eckler, we'll consider Robinson a primary carrier. Eckler being one of the pass guy. And you still can't get a stop? Unprepared. There's no excuses there. But again, you have to give all the credit in the world the way this guy played on the football field, because he was phenomenal. Regardless of what you did or didn't do on defense, you still have to execute as a football player on offense. And you have to give Daniels all the credit in the world for that. Like we said, when the time came, when it was crunch time, they put this football in this man's hand and said, "Hey, we trust you. We can't stop this team defensively. Pick up the first down." And he did it time in, time again. No moment was too big for this guy. We're seeing why he was a Heisman winner. That being said, we're going to talk about this Bengals defense. You know, and this is why I don't like to blame Lou Anarumo. I don't even know if I want to blame Zach Taylor, which is crazy. You know, this might resonate with some that are Reds fans. I've seen it. We're on opposite sides of the fence here. I've seen a lot of Reds fans say, "Hey, it's not David Bell's fault that the Reds couldn't win. The organization, the front office couldn't get this guy, you know, a decent team," which, you know, we went in the whole spew of why that's not the case historically. But when it looks to Zach Taylor and company, you look at the recent drafts of the Bengals over the last 4 seasons, they have used 8 first round drafts, because they've used 8 draft picks in the first 3 rounds. So it's not like they're not taking stabs. 2 of the 3 draft picks in the first 3 rounds on average, that is. They've used them on defensive players. Of those players, of everybody, forget the defensive players. Over the last 4 years, of the first 3 rounds, they've got 2 starters out of that. Jamar Chase and Cam Taylor-Britt. One of them you couldn't miss. One of them you could argue they did miss because Penny Sewell, you know, you couldn't miss that one. Taylor-Britt was a good draft pick. One good draft pick. Nobody else is starting. Should Jordan Battle be starting? Absolutely. Should DJ Turner be getting some starts? Sure. They're not, though. In 4 years, this team and this organization has not been able to scout and not been able to draft and not been able to develop quality players defensively, and you will not be competitive in the National Football League if you draft like that. I do not care who your quarterback is. We have been making the comparison. You know, you look back 10 years ago, 15 years ago, depending how long you've been watching football and following it closely. And you look right now, as much as I hate to say it, Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs are your New England Patriots. They have an elite quarterback. They're willing to not pay high-end wide receivers. They're willing to investing in the offensive line. They're building a dominant defense. They realize real quickly with the quarterback we have, a good defense will win every championship. Then you got, you know, CJ Stroud kind of mounting up to be more like would you call them a Green Bay Packers? An Aaron Rodgers-esque kind of guy, if you will, coming up in the league. A lot of weapons right now. You feel like when he loses those weapons, he'll still be a great quarterback. You know, you can make that debate there. Jayden Daniels. I don't know what Jayden Daniels is going to be. He might be the guy. He might be a guy. But then we have your Cincinnati Bengals. And who do they remind you of? Actually, this one will make a lot of sense to Joe Burrow and company, maybe Jayden Daniels and company, being where they played. They remind me of the New Orleans Saints. We have been preaching this all off season, all last season, why it was so much more important to not worry about this Jamar Chase. Of course, you want to keep Jamar Chase, but there was much more important things to worry about. And I'll say it now and I'll say it again. I'll take a prime Trey Hendrickson. I'll take a prime Geno Atkins over Jamar Chase every day of the week. And we are seeing why today. Because you can't outscore bad defenses and expect to win championships. Remember, we brought up the New Orleans Saints. Why? Because Drew Brees was known early in his career, won that Super Bowl. They had a really good defense. That was really the only time they had it. They had a very short window with a good defense. They aged out. They wasn't able to draft anybody, to bring anybody up. And they had an offensive-oriented team. They had an offense that could put up 30, 35 points a game, but their defense was giving up 35, 38 a game. They couldn't get off the field. We've seen the Saints one year. They went 4-12, I think, doing that. And then they 4-12, 5-11. Well, Drew freaking Brees is your quarterback, looking like an MVP out there. Their defense couldn't stop anybody. This is a Bengals defense whose core has not changed in 4 years. We have to remember the average career of an NFL player being around 4 years. You know how quickly guys go out of their prime, how quickly a dominant defense, look at the Browns right now questioning their defense. A defense is a very short lifespan with the same core. You have to bring in new players. And for your core still to be Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard, BJ Hill was on that roster, Mike Hilton was on that roster, Von Bell was on that roster. I mean, Logan Wilson was an exception because, obviously he was a young player at the time. But when you have a lot of these guys, your whole team's not going to be young. You're going to have guys in your 25, 26, 27. But they're pushing 27. You got to be finding their replacement in a couple years. You can't be saying 4 years from now, oh, I hope they're still starting. Mike Hilton brought a lot of good time for this Cincinnati Bengals team. Love everything he's done for this team. But you got to question that age. You got to question, hey, the tackling's not as good as it once was. You did have a good blow up on a run game. You have to question these guys as age becomes a number. Are we drafting? Are we plugging players in to continue to grow the success of this football team? And you have to wonder, we'll touch on it very shortly, what the impact of the draft is. Because here's the thing. If you draft Penei Sewell, you do not pay Orlando Brown $17 million a year. If you do not pay Orlando Brown $17 million a year, if you do not pay or worry about Jamar Chase's contract, now all of a sudden you're okay. We're going to pay Penei. We say P, maybe not, but we got Penei's money here, or we got Orlando Brown's money here. Who can we sign? Oh, just the best safety in the league right now, Jesse Bates, to an extension and keep him on this team. You want to keep a core. You want to keep the best players on that core. The one player you nailed in the draft in the last decade, you got to be able to keep him. That's the difference and that is how big some decisions can be in the draft. That being said, you could have made Jamar Chase work, could have made it work beautifully, but you had to hit on other positions in the draft, which the Bengals have not done. Again, Volson's making meaningful starts late in the draft. Cam Taylor-Britt was a good one. But to be at a point where you're drafting high-end drafts and, guys like Joseph Asai never got the opportunity. Guys like Jordan Battle, I'm going to say never got the opportunity because he was good last season. All of a sudden, we brought in, a couple of the lowest graded safeties in the league per Pro Football Focus right now. You got one of the lowest graded defensive lines in the league. I mean, 4 of these guys are ranked 100 out of 129. Whatever that means to you from a Pro Football grading standpoint. It is Sam Hubbard, it is Cam Taylor-Britt, it is Logan Wilson, and then there's just a big gap between everybody else. And I say that as respectfully as possible right now, but that is what this team has, and that's okay to have just 3 really good players, but then you have to have great complementary players, and it just doesn't feel like the Bengals have that because they can't generate a pass rush. Compliments to, again, not being able to draft guys, or if they do draft guys, they don't retain them. Jesse Bates, but you just got to have a pass rush. You have to have a pass rush. You have to be able to stop the run. Period. It's that easy in the NFL. No secondary player is good enough to go out there and run around the field for 4 seconds while the quarterback's dropping back in the pocket, not the pass. And that's what's the scariest thing about right now. And again, I say it, we're talking about losing Jamar and T. Higgins. I'm not worried about that. For what? It'll look like Yosevich making plays. Jermaine Burton will be all right. This team's building up what looks like a dual-headed monster at tight end because Eric All Jr. is just going off and looking impressive. If you have 2 tight ends that can be good pass catchers, you have those 2 guys. Do I think Joe Burrow could put up 25, 30 points a game to win with that team? Absolutely. But if you get rid of Trey Hendrickson as he gets older, as he can't pass rush, do I see anybody with a chance right now on this team to get the pressure on the quarterback? No. They have some of the lowest pressure rates in the league right now. If the quarterback, we've seen this, right? If this isn't the prime example, Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was set to lose his job 3 different times playing the Bengals on the Cleveland Browns. He went there to have the game of his life because he just stood back there in the pocket for 5 seconds to find a player. That is the impact of a defensive line. There's really nothing more important defensively. It might not be that more important, period, because other teams are going to stop you on offense. If you can't stop them on the ground or in the air, you're done. There's nothing scarier right now than wondering who's Trey Hendrickson's replacement. I hope they can develop guys like Chris Jenkins, Miles Murphy. I hope these guys can come into their own and become dominant players in this league because they need it. That's a concern for me. And that goes back to, are we going to blame Zach Taylor? Are we going to blame Lou? Or are we going to say, hey, Mike, why are we not investing more into the scouting department? It's been pretty widely known across the league. The Bengals are a little bit cheaper in the scouting department. They're kind of old school. They say, is it cheap or is it just the Bengals like to be more hands-on? Their coaches, their staff having a little bit more hands-on to do with who they're drafting. And that's a double-headed sword. Double-headed, double-ended, double-pointed. I don't even know if that was right. We know it works because Bill Belichick was kind of in that position there for the Patriots. But you have to be a special sort of mastermind for that to work. And the other thing is, when you're doing that, you're putting a lot of time in. You're putting a lot of energy in towards stuff like that. That should be put into game planning. That should be put into coaching your team. And it makes you wonder, is that why the Bengals possibly in this area, lacking to start the season? What's the reason? One thing I do know is that's a lot to put on the plate. And one thing I do know, whether there is a lot of say or not a lot of say with Zach Taylor, Luna, or one of these guys in drafting the players compared to other teams in the league, is regardless, the scouting department's not good enough. If you're drafting year in and year out and you're missing year in and year out like this team is, meanwhile, you got teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, who, mind you, are winning Super Bowls because of their defense right now. Or they're winning Super Bowls because they drafted offensive linemen that were plug-and-play rookies that made an impact. A big one. The Bengals can't even get a rookie on the field. The Bengals don't even give their rookies a chance to get on the field. And that's where you look at the coaching staff and say, what's Lou doing? We've seen this historically with the Bengals, though. Even under Marvin Lewis, they draft first-round CBs. They would never start the season. They'd never start, ever. Always behind two other guys. So you wonder, is that an organization thing? Let's get a guy that we can develop for a year. I wouldn't think so. I would think the coaches can plug and play that anytime they want. Which, that's a big question. That's a coaching staff question. Why is this dude not playing more? I don't know. I do feel like there's a serious systemic issue with the Bengals right now, because it doesn't matter. You got the best argument. If the Bengals win the Super Bowl against the Rams, and if you're so close to beating the Chiefs the second time, and then Joe Burrow gets hurt the third year, you're starting to question. A lot of people in this league think could have the best quarterback in the league. Right now, he's still proven he can be that. You just got to put a defense around him and protect his health. And he's going to win you championships. And I don't feel like the Bengals have any sort of direction with that right now. That's why we say the New Orleans, that's the worst case scenario, is you end up like, and they did win a Super Bowl, you end up like the Saints, where they just never put guys around your quarterback to make a serious run. Bengals win a Super Bowl right now if they had that Chiefs defense. They're in a question in my mind. They might win two. They win two in a row. Question. If you put Joe Burrow in that 49ers offense or 49ers team or that Kansas City, they win. He might not have lost the Super Bowl in 3 years. That's the factor of being able to continuously draft young players, put them on your offense, because you can't just build through free agency. And that is the thing the Bengals have. Sure, you can sign these guys. You can only do that so often, no? I'm really concerned from an organization. I'm really concerned from a drafting and development standpoint more than I am where this team is right now. Joe Burrow's going to find a way to win football games. Joe Burrow's going to make you have hope every single season walking into the season. Joe Burrow's going to make you believe you can beat any football team any given Sunday. There's not going to be a time in the Joe Burrow era over the next 10 years at least where you go into a football game and say, well, Bengals are going to get dominated. You know, and there's been years like that. And you have to be grateful that you have that with Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals team. Unfortunately, though, we're not in an era of just slinging across the field for 40 points a game to win a Super Bowl. The Chiefs are built sound defensively. The 49ers are built sound defensively. These teams making the Super Bowl, the Ravens, trying to figure things out right now, but built sound defensively typically. It's these defensive teams with great quarterback play winning Super Bowls. If the Ravens do, and the Chiefs doing that last year with, a Kelsey on the decline and some young, cheap wide receivers and a rookie wide receiver isn't proof of that, I don't know what is. We'll see, though. Love y'all's thoughts. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.